The story begins in a college classroom in 1965, where a person named Unju was teaching his students. Next to him was Unju, a proud member of the national mountain climbing team. During the class, a boy sitting next to the window asked him why people from the Soviet Union were so keen on celebrating the Chinese conquest of Everest. Did the Chinese conquer Everest? Unju doesn't give any answer to the boy's question. Then, a flashback of our event shows that in 1960, Unju's team had climbed to a height of 6,830 meters on Mount Everest, only to hear the captain utter some words of defeat. So everyone was instructed to stop immediately. Suddenly, they see an avalanche coming from above. The captain instructs everyone to find safe shelter. At that moment, everyone runs back to save their lives. While running, a member of their team falls there. The captain picks him up and starts running. However, the avalanche approaches quickly. He manages to push the person into the snow with his stick and holds onto his harness, but due to the force of the avalanche, he cannot stay there for long. Instead, he gets thrown away and hits a rock, suffering a severe blow under the snow. On the other side, Unju hides behind the rocks with his friends, while the rest keep going backward. Then, the avalanche throws them down the mountain. Suddenly, one of Unju's friends falls into the snow stream. Unju quickly grabs the strap on his friend's backpack and pulls him up. Meanwhile, Sinling, holding onto Unju's camera, slips into the snow stream. Unju jumps to save Sinling's life with the help of his friend Jibu. When the avalanche subsides, they find the captain under the snow. His condition is very critical. He could die at any moment. So, Unju is made the captain and promised to conquer Everest. To keep the captain's word, Unju has to climb Everest. Finally, they surpass 8,500 meters and reach 8,680 meters. There, they see a steep path but lack a ladder to cross it. They try to help each other, but there's no leader among them. Unju was standing below, with Jibu perched on his shoulders and Sinling clinging onto Jibu's shoulders. But suddenly, Unju's foot slipped, causing him to fall. Somehow, he managed to grab onto Unju's foot, and Unju rose again. However, to rise again the next time, he had to take off his shoes. Walking through the snow, with temperatures plummeting to -33 degrees Celsius, was no easy feat. Making this seemingly impossible task possible, Sinling clung to Jibu's shoulders, feeling the cold seep through his feet. Yet, with sheer determination, he rose again and assisted everyone in getting up. For this daring act, he had to sacrifice his toes, enduring the pain for the rest of his life. Navigating treacherous paths, they resumed their journey. Mountaineers succumbing to altitude sickness wished to descend. Yet, driven by sheer willpower, they continued their ascent. Suddenly, Unju realized they were heading upwards without any clear path. The route from above had now descended below. They understood they had reached Everest. Sitting there joyously on May 25, 1960, at 4:20 p.m. Beijing time, the Chinese mountaineering team conquered Everest from the northern side. Fireworks lit up the sky, celebrating their victory. However, lacking any cameras, they couldn't capture these moments as souvenirs. So, Unju filled their national flag with snow and preserved it there. They collected pieces of snow to show everyone that they had conquered Everest. Their triumph reverberated around the world, with everyone cheering for their victory. With the scene shifting, I see a girl named June studying in the library. She was a student in the meteorology department of the college. At that moment, Unju entered the library. Seeing June studying inside, he sat down in front of her. June looked at Unju and burst into tears. They leave the library and head to their favorite spot. There, Unju allows June to read his diary. June opens up to Unju and speaks her mind. Unju then tells June that when they were climbing Everest, they lost their way at 7,900 meters. They ran out of food, yet they didn't give up because he wanted to tell June something. Before he could speak, Jibu arrived there and called them because they needed to go to the commissioner's office immediately. A letter has arrived for them, and everyone is waiting for it. At the commissioner's office, when asked about the letter, the commissioner informs them that when they were studying in the Soviet Union, their coach had sent it. He lets them know that the whole world is laughing at them for conquering Everest, as they believe that the Chinese are lying and fabricating stories, as there is no evidence or photos. After reading the letter, the commissioner asks them why they don't have any photos or evidence. They explain that they lost their camera on Shiveling. However, this reason disappoints others. Consequently, the national mountaineering team is announced to be disbanded. Following this incident, the mountaineers start working on their projects. Everyone becomes engrossed in their affairs. Some join training camps, some start farming, and Unju starts working at a boiler factory to sustain his life. Alongside this, Unju had stopped attending a college class where the first film was shown. He never went to class or the library again. He isolated himself from everything. One day, June goes to Unju's factory and tells him that she has been selected to study abroad from college. Tomorrow, she has to leave. She has no certainty when she will return. Suddenly, some people from outside come there and start throwing stones at Unju, accusing him of lying. To show her disapproval of everyone, June leaves from there and, like a coward, doesn't say anything from behind but comes in front and says she leaves crying. As she walks away, Unju realizes he will never see her again. After going to study in Moscow, Jun changed in 1973, and at that time, the national mountaineering team was restarted. They were once again trying to send people to Everest. The new height of Everest will be measured, which will inspire 800 million Chinese. Unju receives a letter about this matter and is informed to report to the team by 10 a.m. on March 13th. Overjoyed with the letter, Unju sheds tears of happiness. On the other hand, June sends him a letter on March 13th, asking him to meet her in Moscow at 11 a.m. Excitedly, they plan to meet. Mansu, ignoring his affection, joins the team of mountaineers. When June arrives at the factory that day, Unju informs her that he left the team long ago to report. Unju bids farewell to June and leaves for the training camp. Along the way, they meet Lie. Upon reaching the camp, they encounter Jibu and Sailing, and there is also a girl from Tibet named Mudang. A little later, others join them. Mudang helps everyone understand their place. Suddenly, they meet a boy named Yuan, who introduces himself to Mudang. Before knowing his identity, Mudang wants to introduce Lie, but suddenly she sees Li Ke. She liked Li Ke a lot. During mealtime, Mudang serves food to everyone. After the meal, everyone plays sports on the field. Li Mudang was also a person who said that Li Yuan would measure Everest. During the play, Li Mudang was arranging chairs for the team. On this side, when Mudang sees Li putting up a chair for the team, he takes several photos. I had decorated the pictures she found by herself. When Mudang goes to Li's house and looks inside, she sees someone and enters the house to look. Here, coming inside, she finds a camera to climb Everest. Then Li comes there and threatens her, asking why she came here. She answers that she wants to learn how to take photos from Li Ke. When the time comes, you will learn everything quickly. Now, leave the house. At night, Unju, Sailing, and Jibu sit in one place and drink alcohol. Suddenly, Sailing tells Unju that she is offering this cup to him like a trophy because he saved her life. Sailing asks Unju whether he would have thrown the camera if he had been in her place instead. Unju replies that he would have died himself before throwing the camera. Sailing asks why he did that to her then. Unju responds by asking if she would have an answer if the same question were asked to her. Would she kill him? Sailing tells him that if she had a second chance, she would have preferred the camera over Unju. She expresses her frustration, saying that she has been at this camp for 13 years and wonders if anyone understands how she feels. She explains that by staying up there, she could see Everest. It so happened that she had forecasted the entire forecast for Everest. Unfortunately, she doesn't have any second chances. They will leave Everest at any cost this time. That's what they have to do. Sailing, targeting Unju, assures him that everything will go according to his plan and there will be no mistakes. Unju will be responsible for any mistakes that occur. The scene shifts to the training room for the next session, where everyone is present. Sailing asks everyone about their desire to conquer Everest. Someone from within responds, saying our task is to climb mountains, that's why. Hearing this, Yan laughs and says he wants to be a mountaineer like Unju and will climb to the summit of Everest. Sailing calls Unju to speak to him privately. Unju explains to them all the details of climbing Everest, how they will go, what steps they need to take, everything. Jibu informs them about the second step when Unju lifts them on his shoulders. He further explains that for this task, Sailing had to cut off half of Unju's foot. A student from among them asks, when is the safest time to climb Everest? Unju replies that March is the best time. From then on, all the students' training begins, and Unju himself completes the training once. During the training period, Mudang sees Li's suffering and stops the stopwatch before the end, which Sailing understands. She asks Li to practice climbing repeatedly. At one point, she falls ill, but Sailing manages to carry on with her training. At the end of the day, Li holds a beautiful tune in her hand. Suddenly, Mudang arrives there and expresses his regret for the morning incident. Then Sailing jumps from behind to save Li's life and struggles to save him, and with great difficulty, he manages to save him. Meanwhile, Li tries to stop everyone, and then, hearing his voice, Mudang thinks that Li is in danger. So he tries to stop him and tries to hold him back, understanding Li's condition, and tries to restrain him, and they both fall into the trench. And they keep seeking help from everyone with difficulty. Due to the accident, Yan has to be admitted to the hospital. Because he experienced severe pain in his leg, Unzu tells them that the purpose of their team is not to leave those who want to conquer Everest in the hospital. Now, the next scene shows the training camp of March 1975, where their official campaign begins. Everyone travels by car towards the base camp. Mudang and Jibu go to receive blessings from a good priest. The priest advises them not to go there. On the other hand, outside the monastery, Unzu finds Jun talking to his colleagues. Seeing Unzu, he becomes silent and returns to the camp. Recalling the conversation Unzu had with him, he informs Unzu that the message of the weather for the upcoming campaign will be sent to them. That is their mission. Meanwhile, at the medical center, Dr. Yan is prohibited from going to the mountains because his father died of Marfan syndrome, a genetic disease that he could also have. Upon hearing this, Yan keeps trying to convince the doctor repeatedly that he does not have any such disease, but the doctor does not agree with him in any way. In the next scene, we see everyone has left for Everest. Jibu, Mudang, and several others join the main team to provide support. They are called the support team, and Unzu keeps their team as part of the main team. The support team clears the path for them, and they arrive at the advanced base camp at night. The next day, both teams set off for the North Pole, and upon reaching there, Jun informs everyone that the wind speed has significantly increased since earlier. It could increase further ahead, so they all stay inside the camp. That night, the wind speed increased even more. The next morning, they set off again and reached an altitude of 7,500 meters. Meanwhile, Jun was monitoring the weather, and suddenly he realized that the message sent to the team had expired long ago. If they move forward, they might encounter a Category 10 or even higher windstorm. He quickly informs the base camp about this accident through radio and advises them to halt the campaign. But Sinling, ignoring his words, urges them to continue the campaign. In the evening, the main team reaches 8,300 meters, and according to Jun's forecast, the wind speed is expected to increase the next day. However, Jun was unable to communicate with the main team, and they were all exhausted after a day of hard work. So Unzu tells them to rest in their tents. Despite trying to do everything properly in the face of such strong winds, their tents keep flying away. At one point, the rope of a tent gets wrapped around someone's leg, and Lee holds onto them to prevent them from flying away. Seeing that Lee alone couldn't handle it, Unzu also rushes to help, and they manage to save the person whose leg was caught in the rope. Unzu tells everyone to tie the leaders together with thick ropes and tie them with stones so that no one flies away in the stormy wind. Everyone started tying the ropes, but they couldn't properly tie the ropes because the strong wind was blowing the ropes away. Their tent gets pushed back by the wind, and from there, some stones fall back. Amidst the terrifying situation, Unzu falls and injures his shoulder. They find themselves stuck with a boulder and manage to spend the night by retrieving their sleeping bags. In the morning, none of them could stand up. Even Yan struggled to stand despite his efforts. Meanwhile, Sinling at base camp tries to communicate with the main team, but the connection is lost. When it's time to bring Yan back, Sinling manages to establish contact with the main team. He asks them if they have seen Jun because they had left the team's goal by straying from the path due to the illness of a team member in a helpless state, and Jun was trying to call out for help. Jibu tells them not to announce such news with a cry of despair. Through the radio, Jun tells Jibu that his mission is over. If Jibu conquers Everest, he will be very proud. When Jun tells Jibu that he has a lot to say, that he loves him and wants to marry him, he dies there. Everyone's mourning makes Jibu understand that Jun is no longer in this world. After a few moments, he strengthens his mind and returns to his team to ascend. Everyone holds onto the leader to climb up the steep mountain, and slowly, everyone climbs up towards the top. Finally, they reach the summit of Everest. Through the radio, Jibu announces that at 2:30 p.m. on May 27, 1975, a team of 9 members of China's national mountaineering team has successfully conquered Everest. Hearing this, everyone at base camp celebrates with joy. At that moment, Sinling cries and goes out to see the national flag and to measure the height of Everest. Jibu sits quietly at the summit, looking for the flag, and finds it, along with the device called Beacon, attached to the highest point. After setting up the device, the others determined the new height of Everest and announced on July 13, 1975, the newly determined height of Everest was 8,848.3 meters. If you want to see more stories like this, please subscribe to us.